So let's get started. That's Greta Thunberg. What do you all know about Greta? You can unmute and tell me what you know about Greta.
She's an
Young
activist.
Vivian should not be shy.
She's an activist
Right?
from Sweden, or I think. Yeah.
That's right, Sweden.
Yeah.
What else? I bet that young woman with Scott knows something about Greta. Do you know something about Greta?
Cheryl, what do you know? What else can you add about Greta?
We don't want to put you on the spot, but when you think of something, you let us know.
Oh, you can't hear you.
Can you not hear me?
No. Oh, now we can.
Oh, okay.
Rashkado.
Well, he's a very young climate activist, sort of representing the youth. So that's something, I guess.
That's great.
Did she come to America by boat? Did
That's
she refuse
right.
to fly?
Yes, she came to America by boat because she didn't want to fly because that's damaging to the atmosphere. So she found a volunteer that would bring her on a sailboat, her and her father, actually. Anything else?
She's very humble, I think. You know, I think she's all about, listening to the science, as opposed to just making a big, follow the scientists on this. That's her message.
Right. She's very humble. Something that got a lot of attention when she started her activism is that she's on the autism spectrum. And actually, when she first learned about climate change, she became very distressed and she went into depression. And she actually suffered from selective mutism. So she wasn't able to speak for a long time. And what got her out of that was the Parkland massacre of the high school students. Not the massacre itself, but the reaction of those students to it. They were so activist and became involved in trying to pass laws for gun control. And she saw that they could do it. And she thought, well, maybe she could do something about climate change. And that's when she started her vigil outside the Swedish parliament. And because of her activism, in 2019, 4 million kids came out. The greatest example of peer leadership I've ever seen. They came out to protest all over the world. And these are some kids who came out with us in Washington to protest and call for action on climate change. Okay, so moving right along, maybe we can learn something from Moses as a leader as well. What can you tell me about Moses?
He too had a speech impediment.
That's right. That's right. What else? Well, he was another unlikely leader, right? We know he had a temper, for example. We know that he had a lot of conflict in his identity because he was born to an oppressed people, but grew up in the palace. So he was a person of privilege and had to struggle with that. We know that he didn't really want to be a leader. What happened when God called to him from the burning bush? He said, please don't send me, send someone else, right? He really didn't want to do it. And he failed repeatedly. God told him to go back to Egypt, go to the Pharaoh, tell him, let my people go. And when he went, what happened? Pharaoh just was harder on the children of Israel. He didn't let them go. And he had many, many failures. Each of these two people were unlikely leaders. And I think they can be role models for us. Look at Moses. Despite everything, he turned out to be the greatest leader that our people has ever had. Now, I'm a climate change activist. I guess that's why you came. So just the basics, we know what's happening is that because of our burning of fossil fuels, carbon dioxide is accumulating the atmosphere and forming a blanket around the earth and trapping the heat of the sun. And it's a pretty daunting challenge that we're facing. And it seems like, how are we ever going to get out of this? But if you think back to what happened to our ancestors in Egypt, after 400 years of slavery, they were probably pretty doubtful that anything could really change. And yet it did. And luckily for us, we don't have to wait for 400 years. And we don't even have to wait the 40 years to travel through the wilderness to get to the promised land. We can actually see the future already forming around us. I had the incredible pleasure of going on an interfaith mission to see the Block Island offshore wind farm. This is the first wind farm, offshore wind farm that's in operation in the United States, 5 wind turbines. We have the solutions already. We just need the political will to make them actually, come into being. Now, a lot of you probably know about the Agahozo Shalom Youth Village in Rwanda. I can't see all of you at once, but raise your hand if you know about the Agahozo Shalom Youth Village. No? Okay, well, some of you do. I'm going to call on John. What's the Agahozo Shalom Youth Village?
I believe that's a project that our Worried Sophonik Ann Heyman pioneered. May she rest in peace.
That's right. Anne, who was actually in my club, Zichrona Livracha, had the idea when she went to Rwanda and saw all the orphans there, that perhaps the Rwandans could build a youth village on the model of what we have in Israel that was originally set up for youth survivors of the Holocaust and kids that came to Israel because of the Second World War. And she put the experts in Israel together with educators in Rwanda, and they built this youth village. And then another Uri Tzafonik, Yossi Abramowitz, came along and he said, let's build a solar farm at the youth village. And it will be able to provide power. I believe it provides about 10% of all the power in Rwanda, because very few people there have electricity, and it will also provide an income for the youth village. And the money that is generated by selling the power from this solar farm supports the healthcare for the young people who live in the youth village. So not only can we bring about a reduction in the greenhouse gases that are causing climate change, by doing so, we can also bring about more justice and care for more people. Here's the director of the solar field, which opened, I guess, in 2017. There are so many solutions to the climate crisis that you can be a part of. So now we're going to play a game of Eco-Jeopardy to talk about a few more of those solutions. And they're the personal solutions, the things you can do individually. They're the things we can do as communities. I think that's why we Jews have a lot to contribute, because we have strong communities and we can implement these community solutions. And then there are also systemic solutions, which are the ones at the political level, the government level, that can help make it possible for everyone to participate and benefit from this transition to a safer, more just and cleaner world. So we're going to play Eco-Jeopardy, and first we'll have a test question, or test answer, I should say. Make sure we all know how to play. So here's a personal solution to climate change. Meat, dairy, and eggs. Now you have to ask a question, right? In Jeopardy, I give the answer, you give a question. So what's the question for which the answer is meat, dairy, and eggs?
Which two of these don't mix?
That's great, but that has nothing to do with climate change.
Oh, okay.
What are foods that come from animals?
Which of these should we eat less of?
Perfect. Which of these should we eat less of? Because they come from animals, and animals are contributing to climate change because producing them creates greenhouse gases, primarily methane, which we're learning is more and more of a problem. So eat a little bit less of animal foods, a little bit more of plant foods, and that's something you can do, that everyone can do, to address the climate challenge. All right, so now we have another one. Another personal solution, and the answer is a socially responsible credit card. You can guess.
I don't want to guess a second time.
Maybe the
What's
second
in your wallet?
How about,
That's true. Actually, that's a good answer. What's in my wallet is my socially responsible credit card, which I usually show, but I'll show it later. Who
How about
else has a question?
a credit card that can be recycled?
What
instead
is
of
a credit
away?
card that can be recycled? It's a good answer, but no.
What is a credit card that deals with environmentally conscious financial institutions?
Yes. Beep. I don't know. What is it? Ding, 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 ding. That's right. What is a credit card that is issued by a socially responsible bank? Now, why is this important? The reason is that the banks that most of us do business with are financing fossil fuel infrastructure and extraction all around the world. As a matter of fact, the biggest ones, I looked it up before I got on with you, are JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, and Bank of America. Anybody bank with them? I have to admit, I still have some money with Citibank, but I'm working on it. But a great way to get started in addressing this and discouraging these banks from financing more fossil fuels is to get a credit card with a socially responsible bank. I use the Green America credit card, which is issued by the TCM Bank, which is a bank that issues credit cards for community development banks and credit unions. Does someone have a question about that? Someone unmuted, I saw. Okay, very good. And here's a campaign that we did in my congregation to get people to use socially responsible credit cards. By the way, it's really easy to do this. You don't even have to cancel your other credit cards. You just start using the new one. And this is a personal action that we can all take. But what makes it really powerful is when we do it together. What each of us can do is a drop in the bucket, but what we can do together can fill the bucket. So we were able to get 36 members of our congregation to all switch to socially responsible credit card. Okay, here's another question for you. I mean answer, sorry. Here's the answer. The Chazon seal of sustainability. Anyone can guess the question? Oh, come on, take a risk. Amy,
How do we curb the filthy excesses of the kashrut industry?
Unfortunately, that's not correct, but there is a program like that that is done by Uri Litzedek. Look it up.
Yeah, I mixed them up.
Yeah. Anyone want to guess? Okay, you're making me feel good. I'm telling you things you didn't already know.
I'll take a guess. Is it what synagogues are environmentally sound or have environmentally sound practices?
Yes, that's a perfect answer. The Chazon Seal of Sustainability is a program of Chazon, which is Jewish Environmental Organization, chazon.org. You can look it up. And they have a program for synagogues and Jewish organizations to help them to be more environmentally responsible, implement sustainable practices, Jewish environmental education, and activate communities to be involved in addressing the climate crisis. So it's something you can bring to your community in an organized way. You don't have to design it yourself. You can sign up with the Chazon Seal of Sustainability. I just wanted to tell you about one other community thing that we did in my synagogue. We found out that there was going to be built in our community the first community solar field in Maryland. A community solar field is where they build a big solar field and then you can buy your electricity from that field instead of from your regular utility. So we created a campaign to support that. And as you can see, we promoted it especially at Hanukkah, which is the holiday of renewable energy. And those are the names of all the different people in our congregation who signed up. And we displayed that in our lobby. And this is the day that we went to the field for the dedication. And it was really exciting. They built this field on a landfill, so that's a dump. So it was a really great reclamation of land that couldn't really be used for anything else. And because we supported this, the company, part of the reason anyway, the company's become really successful and they're building solar fields in other states, including New Jersey. I saw there were some New Jersey people here. But we realized that we would never have been able to build, to participate in that project, that wonderful project, if it weren't for the fact that our state government had passed a law allowing for community solar and forcing the utilities to let people buy solar energy instead of their energy. So we decided to get involved in advocacy, which is a systemic solution. And this is our group that went to lobby night at our state capitol. So here's our last question, answer. And the answer is the Build Back Better Act. Who can tell me what the question is?
What is chock full of good ideas for saving the environment?
Yay, ding, 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 ding. That's great. So you probably heard about the Build Back Better Act that President Biden had proposed, and it passed the House, but hasn't passed the Senate. So it hasn't become law yet. But it's chock full, as you said, wonderful things that will help us with addressing climate change. Things like clean energy tax incentives, money to electrify public transportation, money for energy efficient low-income housing. They actually have in there to eliminate, believe it or not, I can't even believe this needs to be eliminated, but international incentives that the US government gives for international fossil fuel extraction. Only 12 companies benefit from these tax incentives if they extract fossil fuels overseas, but this would roll it back. And actually just this week, I was part of a group that lobbied our Senator Van Hollen. Are you impressed that I was lobbying this week? Can you smile at me? We were very, and what was really cool is that the staffer of our senator told us that they haven't given up on passing the climate solutions in Build Back Better in the Senate, that there originally was supposed to be $550 billion for these climate solutions in the legislation, and that the Democratic caucus has agreed that they're going to try to pass that still, probably separately. They're probably going to break up the Build Back Better Act, but she begged us to keep lobbying for Build Back Better because there's so many other things happening, like unfortunately the fossil fueled war in Ukraine and all the other things that are going on with COVID in our country and everything, that there's not a lot of attention being paid to that, but it can still pass and we need to keep fighting for it.
Mirele, I'm sorry to hop in. Just giving you an 8-minute warning.
Perfect. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. So in order to help you to be part of bringing about that better future, me and some friends of mine, following the peer leadership that we learned in Young Judea, created the Jewish Earth Alliance. We live in Washington, D.C., so we thought that we could be helpful in helping Jewish communities connect and build relationships with their members of Congress. And the way we do that is that we make it really easy for you to stay in touch with your members of Congress, and then we help you to lobby them personally. And here are some pictures of some of our volunteers across the country and some visiting Washington. On the lower right, you can see Representative Yvette Clarke of New York. We worked with a synagogue where the kids decided to write for Tu B'Shvat to their representative, and they decorated all their letters for Tu B'Shvat. And after we delivered those letters to the representative, we got a call and she said, would you like us to stage a photo with those pictures so we can send it back so the kids can see that I actually read their letters? And that's the photo that she sent to us. And in the middle, we happened to be at one of the rallies. I think it was one of the ones that Greta Thunberg was part of, because every Friday there are these rallies. And we actually had an opportunity to lobby, an impromptu lobbying with Representative Engel. He's no longer in office, but at that time he was. And we asked him to co-sponsor the 100% Clean Energy Act. And he didn't commit on the spot, but a few days later, we actually got a call from his staffer who said Representative Engel will join the bill and co-sponsor it. So we were pretty thrilled about that. So we provide speakers, a monthly action alert. We have a briefing every month that you can attend online, and we can help you meet with your members of Congress. And this is just to show you, every month we have an action alert, and you could just go to our website and you can find it for yourself, or we're happy to add you to our list, our newsletter mailing list, if you go to our website and sign up. That's just an example of one of our action alerts. And here's a letter, personal letter that somebody in Indiana actually wrote to their member of Congress asking them to take action on climate change. And that's my story. I hope you'll all get involved. And I think we have a couple of minutes left for a few questions. See, I'll turn that off.
I just have a comment. Mirele, just absolutely amazing work. You're really an inspiration, and I'm proud to have known you way back when.
Thank you, John. I really do say it's all due to Young Judea. Where did we get those leadership skills? You know, I'm so amazed when I work with people and they have no idea how to organize anything, you know? Yeah. So we need to put those skills to work. Yeah.
I'm stunned. I'm stunned in the conservative movement of how passive they just go limp when any young Judean by the 10th grade knows how to go in there and do it.
So true. So true.
Is your rabbi Fred Dobb?
Yes, he is.
So
Yes.
he's a leader too. I mean, I think he was one, you don't want to say, I don't know who was first, but Fred was talking about the environment back in the early 90s, right? When he walked across the country, I believe, to raise
That's right.
awareness. Yeah.
That's right. That was when I first met him. And yeah, he's still a leader and really very inspiring to be part of his congregation.
I imagine.
Scott, are you related to Arthur Hertzberg?
I wish I was, but I just read his biography, which I'm from Baltimore, so I get that question a lot. I recommend his biography to anybody. You know, he sort of exaggerates his importance here and there, but who wouldn't when they're writing their biography? There's a part where he says he could have prevented the Yom Kippur War if Golda Meir would have listened to him close enough. But no, I'm not related, but I'm from Baltimore.
Oh, you're a neighbor. Maybe we could meet at Pearlstone.
Well, yes, Pearlstone. We're up in Vermont now, but like, yes.
Since you mentioned Arthur Hertzberg, though, Arthur Hertzberg was the reason I went to Kathmandu. It was in 2000, and it was a meeting of world religious activists on climate change. And it was hosted by Prince Philip. Prince Philip was very involved with wildlife. I think it was the wildlife conservation. I forget the organization. Anyway, but I knew Arthur Hertzberg, and he wanted to go, but he didn't know too much about environmental issues. So he asked if I would come with him. In the end, he didn't go, but I got to go.
He had to be quite old in 2002 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why he got sick. He wasn't able to. Yeah. Well, does anyone have any questions about bringing this back to your community?
No, but Mirele, I have a question as to, well, you said a little bit about how you got involved in this. What is it about climate change that is so fundamental to, it sounds like what you do professionally and what your passion is. Why, how did this come about? Like, what was the changeover? What was it that got you hooked in this area?
Well, it said it jokingly in my bio that I'm a social worker originally by training, and I worked for Hillel. So I was involved in Jewish education, not in climate change or environmental issues. And I happened to go to a wedding at Yosemite National Park and went on this day hike and saw this solar composting toilet. And I was really fascinated. You know, it was around 97. I'd never heard of anything like that. But they had a sign on there begging people not to throw their trash in the toilet. Can you believe people would climb all the way up a mountain, you know, and then they would throw their trash in a toilet in one of the most beautiful places in the world? And I came down and I said to my husband, how could people be so insensitive? You know, as a social worker, I was interested in the technology, but I was more interested in the behavior, what the people were thinking and doing. And he said, you know, you're interested in these issues, which I think he picked up on something that also is probably traced back to Young Judea. All those hikes we went on in Israel, which was really a wonderful, on your course was like a wonderful part of my life. And I'm not that outdoorsy, but I just loved that at that time. And he said, you're interested in this. And I went home and joined the Sierra Club. And then I started learning about climate change. And I really think that all those prayers about appreciating the natural world, the Psalms that we say, my favorite holiday is Sukkot, when we sit outside. And that just primed me to be concerned about what is happening to our world. And, I just thought this is something we really need to work on. Hope that answers.
Yeah.
There's so many problems in the world, but that one just caught me.